Today's essential question is, what are points, lines, and planes? A point. In mathematics, a point has no dimension. It simply exists out in space. There's no length, there's no width, there's no height. When we draw points, we use a dot. We name it with a capital letter. Let's say capital P. And there's no symbol for a point. We just write the capital P whenever we're talking about a point, or the capital letter that represents that point. A line in geometry extends in one dimension. Lines have length, but they don't have width, and they don't have height. We draw lines the same way we did in algebra. They're straight, and they have arrowheads on the end. We name our lines with two capital letters. Let's say A and B. And there is a symbol for lines. If we want a short way of writing this, we don't necessarily want to write out the word line AB. We'll say capital A, capital B, and we'll put a little baby line symbol on top of that. And we read this line AB. A plane extends in two dimensions. Planes have length and width, but no height. We think about a flat surface that goes on and on and on forever when we think about planes. We usually draw them by drawing a shape that looks like a parallelogram, and then we put a point inside. We name it with a capital letter. Now, to tell the difference between a point and a plane, when you're writing out answers, you actually have to write the word plane P. If all you say is the capital letter, the assumption is you're talking about a point. So you have to use the word plane every time you're talking about a plane. Points that are on the same plane. So let's draw a plane here. And let's put in M and N. We call these coplanar. Co is a prefix in English that means together or with. So they're together on the plane. We say points M and N are coplanar. Points that are on the same line. So let's use D and E. Okay, if we had points that were coplanar, these points are collinear. Co meaning together or with, linear meaning line. So points D and E are collinear. Part of a line that consists of 2 points called endpoints. So let's draw this. Endpoints. And all of the points in between the endpoints, this is called a line segment. We name line segments with 2 capital letters. And we do have a symbol or a shortcut way of writing this. We say capital E, capital P, and we put a baby line segment symbol on top. Whenever possible, put your letters in alphabetical order. That's mathematical grammar, and it helps the person who's reading your work. Part of a line that consists of a point called an initial point and all of the points on the line extending in one direction. Alrighty, this is called a ray. We're going to name it with 2 capital letters. R-Y, we're going to put a baby ray on top. The initial point always has to come first in the name. So your ray should always, when you name it, start with whatever point the ray starts with. The next vocabulary word is the perfect example of how if you draw things out, they make a lot more sense. Point C is between point A and B on line AB. Okay, so I need line A, B, and I'm going to put C somewhere in between them. So now I have ray CA, this ray, and ray CB, this ray. These are called opposite rays. They point in opposite directions, and they form a straight line. Opposite rays have to make a straight line. Two or more geometric figures intersect if they have one or more points in common. In Algebra 1, you looked for intersections. When you graphed systems of linear equations, you were interested in the point of intersection. In geometry, we not only have intersecting lines, but we have lines intersecting with planes. So imagine having your piece of paper, holding it out flat in front of you, and then sticking your pencil through it. The paper would represent the plane, and your pencil represents the line I just drew. These intersect in a point. You can have a plane, and you can have a line that's on that plane intersecting in an infinite number of points. Intersect. The intersection are the points they have in common. Okay, so in my example up here, I'm just going to draw a line down, I have one point of intersection. And this one is also one point of intersection. This one is a line of intersection. You can have lines, line segments, points, even planes of intersection. Already in this first unit, you should have a feeling that there's an awful lot of vocabulary in geometry. And I strongly encourage you to come up with a way to study all of these words. Either make yourself flashcards with the word on one side and the definitions on another. Make yourself a list. You can fold your paper over from the right side, covering up the definitions so you just see the words, and then you practice saying the definitions out loud. But if you don't know what all the words mean, there's no way to solve the problems in geometry. And there's a lot of language in this class. So we're going to work a couple of problems using this vocabulary. I want 3 points that are collinear. Collinear means on the same line. So as I look at this diagram, I've got a line right here with C, A, and B. So points A, C, and D. 3 points that are coplanar. Coplanar just means they're on the same plane. And I have lots of options. C, A, B, and D to choose from. I'm going to say points A, B, C. Four points that are not coplanar. Look for keywords like that, words that exclude things. So I need a point that's not on that plane. That happens to be point E up here. E is on a line that's coming down and going through the plane, but it's not actually sitting on it or resting on it. So any answer I have has to have point E, and I can pick any other points I want. Now, one of the things that we often do when we're trying to show planes that intersect, we use prisms to draw those diagrams. This diagram is a rectangular prism, and we're trying to show you 6 planes that intersect. So imagine each side on this prism goes on and on and on and on and on forever. It looks like it stops because of the way we draw things, but it goes on and on forever. So 3 points on the diagram that are not collinear. Well, how about A and B are collinear, but H is not on the same line with A and B. So let's say points A, B, and H. Now I want a point on this diagram that is coplanar with A, D, and E. So that means it's on the front of this prism. Okay. A, D, and E. The last point here is H, point H. Drawings are very popular in geometry, and drawing a sketch of what's being talked about is a very powerful tool for figuring things out. So draw 4 non-collinear. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're not in a straight line. And label them A, B, C, D. Okay, I want to draw segment AB. No arrows on a line segment. I want to draw ray BC. Start at B, go through C, and then put on your arrowhead. Line CD. Through both points, make sure you have arrowheads. And then ray DA. Start at D, go through A, then put on your arrowhead. And finally, ray BD. Start at B, go through D, put on your arrowhead. I knew what to draw by looking above the letters. What do those symbols mean? Next up, 3 points so they are not collinear. A, B, C. I'm drawing segment AC. I'm drawing ray BA. And I'm drawing line BC. Don't forget your arrowheads or your drawings are wrong. Third one, draw a line. Label 3 points. C, A, T. My opposite rays. Opposite rays have to share an endpoint. So I have ray C, I have ray AC. starting at A, going through point C, and I have ray AT starting at A, going through point T. Oh my, sketch two lines that do not intersect. Well, there are two types of lines that don't intersect. There are parallel lines and there are skew lines. Skew lines only exist in 3 dimensions. They're hard to draw. So I'm going to draw parallel lines. And when you want to tell your reader that your lines are parallel, you put a little caret on them, pointing in the same direction. And this symbol means that my lines are parallel. Sketch a line that intersects each of the other 2 lines and label the points of intersection, P and Q. Sketch 2 planes that do not intersect. Well, planes that don't intersect have to be parallel. Much harder to draw. And so what we do is we sketch our parallelogram, and then we do another one underneath it, but not touching. And so you imagine holding a piece of paper, maybe separate them by 6 inches. Okay, they're parallel to each other, but they're not going to intersect. Sketch a line that intersects both planes. Come down, and here, and there we go. Label the points of intersection. Much harder to draw. Sketch 2 planes that intersect. Oh my. Okay. So I'm going to sketch a parallelogram and imagine this as a piece of paper flat on my desk. Then I'm going to imagine taking a piece of paper and just having one edge touch my first piece of paper. In this case, because planes are infinite, planes go on and on and on forever, I have a line of intersection. Forever. A line of intersection. All right, so you need a summary, and you need several questions that help prompt you about the content of your notes. So if I go back to the beginning of my notes, all that vocabulary is good on the first page. On the second page, you need a question about this topic, a second question about this one, and a third question right about here. It'll take a few minutes to do that.